Hello students, in this video let's discuss the NEET focus areas for the chapter Biological Classification. As you perhaps know already, this is yet another seemingly small chapter but quite important for NEET. In a sense, an average of 2 to 3 questions are asked every year from this chapter. Okay, so let's start by looking at an overview of the chapter. We start off with an introduction to biological classification, wherein we discuss what it is and why there's a need for such a system. We also briefly look into the earlier systems of classification, especially the 2-kingdom and 3-kingdom systems. In these, we just focus on who proposed them, what the criteria were, and what the main drawbacks were, which would also help you understand what exactly paved way for the most popular system, which is the 5-kingdom system of classification. Here again, it's important to remember who proposed it and, of course, the main criteria considered for this classification. Let's not forget the 3-domain system of classification. If you remember, this is the system in which living organisms are grouped into 3 broad domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. This chapter, however, is all about the 5-kingdom system of classification. Then we start with the first kingdom, which is Kingdom Monera. This is a very important kingdom because a good majority of the previous year's questions have been asked from this. But of course, about different aspects of it, including the general characters, classification into archaebacteria and eubacteria, and their respective features and examples. Methanogens has also been another favorite in the near past. And when I say general characters, I mean everything that's typical of most organisms in this kingdom, including their habitat, appearance, nutrition, reproduction, and any other major salient feature. Even the basic fact that this is the only kingdom that includes prokaryotic organisms. Cyanobacteria is also a favorite of some paper setters, and your options in such a question could include aspects from Monera and Protista, because it's one thing that people commonly tend to go wrong with. Moving ahead, we have Kingdom Protista, in which we again focus on the general characters, classification, and their features and examples of each group, especially those with some economic importance and the disease-causing ones. However, when questions are asked across groups in this chapter, those related to protists could end up being very confusing because, true to its nickname, the dumping ground, it's a kingdom that includes animal-like, plant-like, and fungus-like organisms. Moreover, most protists are unicellular, because of which you naturally tend to get confused about whether an organism belongs to Monera or Protista. Remember, Monerans are prokaryotes while protists are eukaryotes. This is followed by Kingdom Fungi, which is also a very important kingdom considering the number of times questions have appeared in the exams. The general characters, including the modes of nutrition and reproduction, are important. And then the classification into the various groups such as Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, and so on, their features and examples, along with any significance. The last 2 kingdoms are Plantae and Animalia. We haven't discussed these kingdoms in our videos of this chapter. You would remember that because you have 2 whole different chapters on them. So you're anyway going to be learning them well in detail. But of course, in this chapter, you must know the basic salient features of each of these kingdoms and the common examples. Finally, the topic on viruses, viroids, and lichens. Here you must know the structure of a virus and the major disease-causing viruses. What are viroids? How are they different from viruses is also something that we should know. And regarding lichens, we just discuss what they are, as in the members involved in the symbiotic association, their individual roles, and the fact that lichens are good pollution indicators. Considering all these topics, I'd say the topics from which maximum number of questions have appeared over the last 10 years are kingdoms Monera and fungi. Questions could also include options across the various groups. Unfortunately, this is a chapter in which you need to remember a lot of scientific names and common names as examples. Basically, memory-based questions are what I'm talking about. But the good thing is that since it's not really a concept-heavy chapter, you can definitely manage to remember these names, especially when you create your own codes and mnemonics or whatever works for you. It becomes a lot easier. Just a little bit of extra effort, because this can easily fetch you 8 marks, or if you're really lucky, even more. Let's recall that members of kingdom Monera include the various types of bacteria. So they are prokaryotic and unicellular for sure. And I guess most of you would have confirmed these 2 characters, and the confusion is perhaps with the 3rd and 4th characters, right? So let's look at option C, photosynthetic. Well, not all Monerans are photosynthetic. There are heterotrophic bacteria too. And then coming to the presence of cell wall, is it only plants that have a cell wall? Of course not. All bacterial cells possess a cell wall. So option D has to be the answer, which says 1, 2 and 4 are correct. Let's now look at a question about members belonging to the various kingdoms. And there's a simple reason for which I wanted to discuss this question. I'll tell you what after the solutions. Let's start by looking at the familiar organisms first. Mushroom, most of us know, are fungi, some species of which are edible. You'd most likely not go wrong with this, unless of course you mistook it for a plant. So B is a correct pair and hence not the answer. Now, sponges are marine animals, but perhaps because they are sedentary organisms, you could assume that they are plants. Nevertheless, it's matched correctly. Euglena is a single-celled flagellated eukaryote, making it a protist. Remember, kingdom Protista is the group that includes most of the single-celled eukaryotes, while Monera includes prokaryotes. So, B is also a correct pair. Of course, now that we have eliminated options B, C and D, A has to be the answer logically, but let's think about it a bit. Cyanobacteria, as the name tells you, is a type of bacteria which are prokaryotes, but they are sometimes called blue-green algae because they are photosynthetic and appear blue-green due to the pigments. This nickname is just perhaps given so that it's convenient to generally talk about organisms that are aquatic and photosynthetic. So remember, it does not reflect any relationship between cyanobacteria and other organisms called algae. Keep in mind that cyanobacteria are prokaryotes and hence belong to kingdom Monera and not Protista. Thus, option A